Welcome, Tim.
Thank you.
So I've been watching some of your videos, but I've come to know you a little bit through meeting you at various freedom events like Uprise and Shine, and I can't remember what other ones that we've come across, but and you've been one of a couple of guys who've just been putting in goodness knows how many hours traveling all over the country, turning up to events, and the man behind the camera. And so when I've seen some of your interviews, I've been curious about finding out more about the guy behind the camera. What drove you to put in all of this effort and what you're trying to do with it? So before we get, so you set up your venture as Fair Play Now.
Fair Play Now, that's right, yes.
Do you want? I'd love to get into a bit of your background, but do you want, just for those who've never heard of Fair Play Now or never come across you, do you want to just give us a little snippet? What is Fair Play Now, and what are you trying to do with it?
Well, Fair Play Now is my YouTube channel, and by the way, thank you, Rebecca, for inviting me into your home and doing this interview with me. It's a little bit unusual for me to be the interviewee. Normally it's the other way round, so I'm looking forward to this. Thank you. So Fair Play Now, that's a YouTube channel I set up just over 3 years ago, and for three reasons. Obviously we're in the height of the nonsense, or coming into the height of the nonsense then, as I call it.
Yeah, because we're filming now in October 2023.
Yeah, that's right.
3 years ago you set this up.
3 years ago, and for three reasons. One, for my own sanity. I needed to vent, and doing that onto the channel was a good one.
So that was you speaking to camera, was it? Initially?
Yeah, I literally just got my phone, put it on a little stand thing, and pushed a button and just went and uploaded it.
Wow.
So just to vent. Reason number two really was for a historical record. I knew we were living in historic times, and I just wanted to make a historical record, because I knew people would start gaslighting after a few years and say, oh, that never really happened. Well, yes, it did, and I've got the recording of it, actually. And number three was to give other people support. I always like to, on pretty much every video, put some kind of resource on there for people, whether it's an uplifting video or an informational video that I've come across. I think the latest one was David Icke's interview with Rainer Fuhrmich, the German lawyer. And so I put a link to that, or talked about it, and on my video, and people can then go and find out about that.
So that's directing them to other information and resources.
Yes, that's right. And people have been quite grateful to me. I pointed a lot of people in the direction of Stand in the Parks, and they'd never heard of it, and they've come back to me and said things like, oh, I'd have never known about Stand in the Parks, which has become a major part of my life if it hadn't have been for your video. So that makes me feel really, really good.
So you go to Stand in the Parks every Sunday, do you?
I used to. It's slowing down a little bit, like with everybody, but certainly from kind of spring of 2021 right the way through to about this time last year, I was going, first of all, every week, and then certainly every other week. And we'd go and meet in the pub on Thursdays, sit in the pub rather than stand in the park. We had in our group as well.
Sit in the pub.
Sit in the pub, yeah. And at its height, there was about, in our area, which is the Crawley Stand in the Park, there was about 30 of us at the stand and about 25 of us in the pub. So
and so for those who've never heard of Stand in the Park,
oh yes, yeah, we better explain that a little bit.
What is it, and what did it give to you?
Well, basically it was an Australian guy called Brady, can't remember his surname. He started it in Australia, and he just literally went to his local park and stood there every Sunday at 10 o'clock for an hour or two, just as a protest, because I don't think with their lockdown rules he was supposed to be doing it.
Yeah. And to put that in context for those who haven't come across some of the material about what was going on during that time, I mean, that was an arrestable offence perhaps in Australia at the time, wasn't it?
It was,
there, wasn't it?
Yeah, you could certainly have been arrested.
And here at times, but particularly there, wasn't it?
I think he was arrested actually,
so
if I remember.
Actually, just to go and stand in the park as a one-man protest was a revolutionary act.
It was.
And so it caught fire over here.
Yeah, well, I think he had an ex-girlfriend who was English who obviously was back in this country and saw what he was doing and thought, oh yeah.
Is this Fifi?
Fifi, yeah. So, and then I saw those two being interviewed by Dan Aston Gregory from the Pandemic podcast around about April of 2021, and that was a Friday night. And then on the Sunday I thought, I've got to get down to my local park, and there was a few weeks when it was just me and Lorraine there, my wife, and that was, we went down there, we were standing there, and then
what were you hoping to do or find or?
Well, hoping other people would come and join us, basically.
Right. And that happened over time.
It did, yeah. First of all, we had 1 or 2 people coming our way, and then another few until there was about 5 or 6 of us, and then one of them said, "Oh, actually, there's already a stand in the park in Crawley, but it's at this other park." Okay. And I thought, I just naturally assumed it'd be at the biggest Crawley park. But it wasn't. It was the one in most central to Crawley, so town centre.
And for anyone who hasn't come across a stand in the park or might be wanting to find other people who might be questioning things, I mean, how do they find you? Is it just some strange person standing in a park, or how do people know who to migrate towards in a park for the people?
Well, Stand in the Park themselves have a website with all the locations. Although I can't remember what the website's called now, actually, standinthepark.org or something, but you go to my website, fairplaynow.net/stand, that page. I've got a list of venues as well. It might be a bit out of date.
So they designed a yellow smiley face logo, didn't they?
Yeah, and you're supposed to wear a bit of yellow as well. Not that I really do that, but I've got a yellow T-shirt actually.
Right. Yeah. So that was initially how you kind of could spot who to approach.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and now I've been to ones where they've got a flag.
Yeah.
Flying, so it's clearer.
That's right. Yeah.
What did that give you?
Oh, it's just, that was the first thing. That actually coincided with my first London March in April 2021 as well. And that was when I realised, I wasn't on my own, or that me and my wife weren't on our own. Okay. Because up to that point, it was sort of us thinking one way and everybody else, it seemed, thinking another way, apart from a few YouTubers I'd come across, like Dan Aston Gregory and a guy called Lee from Veritas Vincit.
So how would you describe how you were thinking at that time and what you were?
Well, I was just thinking.
Why you were feeling alone?
I was just thinking, it's just the flu, really, or this whole. I don't know if you want me to say the actual word, but I'll call it the lurgy, but we all know what we're talking about, the thing that's been around for the last 3.5, 4 years. And I just thought, well, it's just the flu, or maybe at most flu plus 10%. And why is everybody making such a big fuss about it? Why are we looking down? And why are we going into multiple lockdowns to third one? And I just couldn't understand it. And then when I was trying to talk to people, relatives and friends, they just thought I was mad, and I was the mad one, rather than everybody else who were just following the rules and thinking, oh yeah, this is perfectly okay. So
you had questions about the the government's responses to.
Oh yeah,
to
questions is putting it mildly, really. A bit of anger as well.
Right.
It's got to be said.
And so I mean, I do want to get into background because it sounds as though, I mean, like the stand in the park guy, you know, it was a revolutionary act to go and stand in a park, even if it was on your own at the time.
Indeed, it was. Yeah.
It's a pretty revolutionary and courageous act to get out your phone and start venting and posting that online, particularly in the light of the increasing censorship that we've found ourselves with in the last few years. So I mean, tell me about that. Tell me about that feeling inside you when you'd been like questioning what was going on. Sounds as though you were quite fortunate that you were on the same page with your wife.
Yeah, definitely.
Which hasn't been the case for many people, and that must have been really tricky.
Yes.
And you didn't know yet about Stand in the Park or where to find other people who thought like you, and you were thinking differently from your family, and your family were thinking different from you. So there was a bit of polarisation, separation going on there.
There was a little bit. And unlike a lot of people,
tension.
Yes, yeah.
Which I think many of us can be familiar with.
Indeed.
So that moment, just as you put it, to vent, to get out your camera with your phone and just talk to camera.
Yeah.
What was that feeling inside that sparked that first revolutionary act?
Oh, well, I'm going to say it was anger, really, and frustration. Well, the way it started, do you know a lady called Anna Breeze? Mm-hmm. Yeah, well...
Do you want to just say, for those who've never heard of her?
I will indeed. Well, basically, back in 2020, spring and summer and early autumn, she had a YouTube channel with a fair number of subscribers, probably about 20 or 30,000, and she offered that as a platform to ordinary people who, she just said, get your phone out, just record a 5 or 10 minute piece to camera and then send it to me and I'll put it on my YouTube channel for you. And loads of people did that, and I was just sitting there watching all of these people who were on the same page as myself. And in the end I sent a video in to her myself, but I thought, why just do this for 10 minutes just as a one-off when I could set my own channel up and do it as much as I like.
And am I right in thinking Anna Breeze is or was a journalist?
Yeah, BBC journalist, I think. Who
did she stop working for the BBC around that time?
Yeah, either around that time or before. There are people in the freedom movement who've got their doubts about Anna, but I'll be forever grateful for her for giving me a kick up the backside, really.
So in a way she did quite a revolutionary act, which was to invite all and sundry to have their tuppence worth.
Yeah, and then
uploaded onto her channel.
Yeah.
And that facilitated you then to realise that you weren't alone, and others were sharing your opinion, and actually this was something that you could perhaps create your own channel.
Yes, that's what I thought. And then another guy who I know who watched her videos and set up his own channel, is a guy called Lee. His channel's called Veritas Vincit. He's an interesting guy. He's from the Black Country. He's a Black countryman, and with that accent. But I watched his videos, and he kind of encouraged me to start my channel and make my videos, and we kind of encouraged each other and bounced off each other a bit, mentioned each other and each other's videos, and he's sort of become quite a good friend. I've met him a few times in person.
And when you first did that, either submitting what you submitted to Anna Breeze's channel or to start your own, what was the response?
Pretty good actually. Lots of quite a lot of views on her channel, and lots of positive comments, a few negative comments, but
how did you handle those?
Water off a duck's back.
Didn't touch you?
No.
So do you care what other people think about you?
No,
that
not
helps.
Really. Yeah, I suppose so. Really, I suppose I'd be a liar if I was totally unconcerned by it. But I'm certainly the trolls on my channel. I don't really care about what they are, what they say. In fact, I feel a bit sorry for them, because why would you watch every single video from someone you fundamentally disagree with, when you could be watching other people who you agree with? What's the motivation there? Unless it's money, unless they get paid for it.
That's quite an interesting question, isn't it? Because some undoubtedly probably paid to do that, to sow dissent. Others that I've come across, they may passionately believe that their way of thinking or their views is right, as you might think of yours, and there's perhaps a need for each side to try and persuade the other to come on board so we can get out of this mess. I think that impetus has been shared on both sides. The commonality, the views about how to do that and why have been quite conflicted.
Yes.
So would you think that's fair, that some people might be there to?
Yeah, I hadn't really looked at it that way, actually. To be
honest, their bit to get you round to their point of view.
Yes, that could well be part of it.
Because while we're in a silo, we're not really discussing, are we? We're not making we're finding each other, but we're not. I don't know. Does it become an echo chamber?
Yes, I think it does really. I
think that was. How do you feel that served a purpose at the time that you started? Because it's fair to say we're all on a journey, and the whole transition of what we're living through, everybody is evolving.
Yes.
So our purpose is probably evolving with that. So how did it serve a purpose to find the people who agreed with you?
I've had so many comments how I've helped them through the height of the nonsense, and as I always say, that's very much a two-way street. They've helped me as well, helped me to preserve my sanity, and helped me realise that I'm not alone in the struggle that I'm having and the journey. And it's just been marvellous. I've made so many friends online through the channel.
I think that what you've just said there is let's put it in context, because if we wind back to 2020, 21, the censorship hasn't gone away, but the narrative that was being put out there was so forceful, wasn't it? That anybody who strayed from that narrative, what was being put out by the BBC, what was being put out by the daily or weekly bulletins from the government, if you strayed from that, you were actively encouraged, even by Cressida Dick, the head of the police, Met Police at the time, and certain MPs, to actually, diss on your neighbour, and there was quite some division being sown there, wasn't there? So
yes,
it was an easy path to go along and agree, or be seen to be agreeing with what was accepted.
Very much so. Yeah, that's
and it was a very, very charged and challenging and difficult and potentially isolating thing to go to show dissent, wasn't it? To show a different opinion.
Yes.
Either you were shut down by the technical censorship, or you risked losing friendships or good relations with neighbours, or your job, or can you speak to that?
Yeah, definitely. It was very strange times, dangerous times really as well, and I couldn't believe that it was happening in this country. Where we've always believed in freedom of speech and freedom generally. All of a sudden we're looking at this totalitarian situation where no dissent's allowed whatsoever, otherwise you're going to be hounded out of society and treated as a pariah.
And so that first step to find your tribe, to know that you weren't alone, was actually really, really important, wasn't it?
It was. Oh yeah.
You talk about for your sanity.
What a relief it was when people started. I started meeting people at the stand in the park, and especially when I went on the first London March, April the 24th, 2021 will be.
That was your first one?
Yeah, and I'll remember that for the rest of my life. And I rank that as one of the top 10 days in my entire life.
Why? For what reason?
Just because I went up there and the numbers of people were massive. You know, it wasn't just a few hundred or even a few thousand, a few 100,000. The streets were packed, you know, and my little section of it started in Hyde Park, and there was a good, you know, many thousand people there. And then we saw another load of people in the street, the other side of the railings, loads and loads of people. And there are so many people on our side. We started going towards the fence and the little gap in the fence, and I almost feared that there's going to be a Hillsborough incident, because there's a great big crowd starting to sort of crush up against the railings, although that obviously didn't happen and we were able to get through the gap. But that just gives you an idea of numbers there. Right. And to see that number of people all on my wavelength, thinking the same way as me, with all their placards making it known that that was the case, and talking to people, was just so fantastic.
Can you just, so it's interesting that you say that that's one of the highlights of your life, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, so you found people online, and you've got conversations going on in the digital realm.
Yeah. Can
you describe the difference between that feeling and then the in-person feeling of finding so many people?
Well, it's nice to have people online that you know and who support you, and you're supporting them. But there's nothing like meeting people in person, and you sort of pick up so much more from people, don't you?
That's why we're doing
this. Yeah.
Because we live in the same county, so.
That's right. Yeah, I like these in-person things. You know, it just seems a lot more natural to me, really. So. But the online is valuable. It gets you, it kick-starts things, but you need to do things in person as well, I feel. Yeah.
So I wanted to pick up on what you were saying about so going online and building your channel. How do people find you?
They've seen.
Because I could think that I could start that, and I might be lucky if I get one or two people. I might just be doing it for myself. So I mean, you had the springboard, perhaps, of Anna Breeze's. Or did you post a link there?
No, not really. No, I started my channel in about late August, early September of 2020, and from then right the way around to about April of 21. I only had started at one subscriber, who was my wife, and then a couple
Good
more.
To get started.
Yeah, and then sort of around the start of April 21, I still only had 20 subscribers, and so for all of that time, I was speaking to 20 people, and probably not at the same time. And but I was happy.
They were interacting live, or
yes, yeah. People, some of them would leave comments under my videos. There was no way of interacting other than that at that time.
And you've mentioned trolls, but when I've looked at some of your videos, actually, it seems like you've got a lot of support.
Oh yes, yeah.
A lot of people cheering you on, and
yeah, the lovely people outnumber the trolls by, I don't know, 100 to 1 or more. Sort of 1,000 to 1. So
you can't please everybody, but you can.
No,
yeah,
and that's another reason.
Find a majority to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, if everybody were sort of troll-like on the channel, that might be a bit of a different story. But the fact that so many people are lovely and support me, and like you say, cheering me on, is great, and it's what helps me carry on.
So I would love to go back and find out more about your background. And I mean, have you always been a cameraman?
Well, no, I only do the camera stuff. That's a labour of love in my spare time, and my real job is I'm an electrician, stroke property maintenance. So I started off self-employed as a handyman, really, I suppose you can call it, and then I got my electrical qualifications and moved over to electrician type work. But I still do more general property maintenance as well, which is quite handy. For home as well, I had to change a tap the other week, and I've got to change the fan, extract fan in the bathroom.
Very handy.
Because that's packed up, yeah.
You'd have a full-time job here.
Oh.
So, I mean, where did you pick up the skills to get behind the camera? Because, I mean, you know, people might think that it's straightforward. You rig up your phone and start speaking, but actually you've got quite a bit of kit and lights and, you know, the sound checks, and there's quite a bit of setup involved to do this sort of thing. I wouldn't know where to start. So, I mean, where did you learn all that?
I went on a little video making course, 4-day course up in London in 2018, which is, I think it's Spectacle something or other, video training. They're up in London, and I had a fabulous 4 days learning the basics there. But I'd done a lot of stills photography before, and at one stage in my life, again, really on Saturdays, I was a wedding photographer. Probably did about 100 weddings, I should think. So I learnt a lot about photography from that. I knew all about sort of F numbers and shutter speeds and etc. From there, and how to sort of frame a shot nicely. But video was new to me. Sort of like the idea of video. If they, what's the saying? So one photo or picture sort of speaks 1,000 words. Well, a second of video, if you're sort of shooting at 25 frames a second, is 25,000 words a second, multiplied by the number of seconds or minutes that you're doing. So that you can get a lot of communication.
So you were drawn to go and do some training in videography in 2018. So prior to all of this.
Oh yeah, yes.
Last few years kicking off, and the photography, the wedding photography, came before that.
Yeah, I was always into photography since about early teens.
Okay.
I had a camera which I was got given, an old camera with all the f-stops and shutter speeds on and trial and error. Of course, this is film day, so you don't know what you've got. You think, oh, I've taken a fantastic picture here, and then you get it's too dark, or out of focus.
You did really have to learn the skill, didn't you?
Yeah, and
all the days of digital.
But I built it up and sort of got to the stage where I could take a reasonably decent picture.
So that was a creative pursuit that has actually sort of found a new purpose.
Yeah. It's as a lady I was talking to the other day was saying, it's almost like we're in preparation all our lives for these times. Yeah. So I feel like that's really what's happened to me. And but going back to your point of you've got to have all the kit to make proper videos. You don't, a decent smartphone, it's so capable, and you only need to remember 3 things to produce a half decent video. Stabilization, so try and get there. So you're not shaking all about, getting all that jittery and moving around. So if you can put the phone down on a little stand or something, which you can get cheaply enough, that'd be number 1. Number 2 is lighting. You just need to learn a little bit about lighting. Don't have yourself in front of a window.
Don't face the window.
Yeah, we've seen.
And why, for those who don't know?
Well, we've all seen these videos over the last
silhouettes.
Where you're just a silhouette. That's because the camera can't handle the bright light source behind you. So draw the curtains or move to another part of the room. Even people like Neil Oliver used to do it, didn't he? His early videos from his house, he was always in silhouette, wasn't he? But he's obviously sort of learnt now, and because his modern videos or current videos are really good. But so that's the number 2 thing, and number 3 is sound. just again.
Tips on sound?
Well, just make sure you've got the camera quite close to you. If it's I've got an iPhone 11 on that camera over there, and as long as it's within a metre of you, it gives you really good sound. If it's beyond the metre, it's about 2 metres away here, and I've got a little microphone thing that you plug into the charging socket on a phone, and with a little adapter, and that will really sort of boost your sound, and you can get a decent microphone for about 50 quid.
So stabilise so you're not shaking and
stabilisation,
out of focus. Lighting.
Yeah, and sound.
Don't put yourself with a window or light behind you.
Yeah.
Ideally have it coming from the side rather than a bubble behind.
That's right, yeah.
And 3, sound, just be within a metre of your phone or whatever.
Yeah, I know. Sort of. I used to put my phone. My regular viewers will know that some of my videos are made in my vehicle, and you sort of put the sun visor down, and there's a little strip there which you sort of put your fuel receipts in or whatever, and I just slip the phone in that, so I've got the stabilisation, and it's within.
And you've got the lighting from the front window.
Yeah, through the front window.
And close enough for sound.
Yeah, a vehicle's a really good recording studio actually, because
attach it to your sun visor.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can do
balancing it on the dashboard.
You can do that. Only if you've got the little strip thing though. Otherwise, you can get these suction cup things to stick on the windscreen with the thing that you put your phone on. So there you
go. So nobody's got any excuse not to be their own
videographer.
videographer.
And start off in a vehicle, maybe.
So is there something that you actively encourage with your channel? Because like fear is contagious, courage is contagious, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Is that part of your endeavour?
Well, I've heard Richard Lewes saying the same thing. And I back him up. I'd encourage everybody to just pick up your phone and just start speaking your mind. And you might sort of think, well, you're just going to get more competition, aren't you? You're going to get people going away from your channel to watch these new channels. Well, I don't care about that. I just want the word to get out there, and I want more and more and more people to start speaking their mind and posting the videos on YouTube or wherever it might be. And if there's 1 million of us doing that, my goodness, wouldn't that change things? It'd be absolutely fantastic.
What would you say to those who might be shy about revealing their own thoughts, or concerned that might get them in trouble, that it's a record out there in the internet that can always be traced back to them, and that sort of anybody who's in that fear mentality of being able to actually voice their true opinion and do that publicly? Or
I do understand those concerns, because people have got jobs where if the boss saw what they're doing, they might get the sack, and or friends and relatives. Luckily, I'm self-employed, and sort of my relatives, even the ones I've had sort of arguments with, and the friends I've had arguments with in the past, that didn't get so bad that it ended the relationships or anything. We just agreed to disagree now, really. But so I suppose I was in a fairly fortunate position, but at the end of I suppose you get to a point where you've just got to do it and say.
Tell me about that drive, because I've seen you say that in your other videos, that you just feel compelled to, driven to do what you do. And I know Karen, who you recently interviewed, who's founded the Freedom Network, feels the same. That there's something. Well, she's described it as pulling her to this point, and that everything's led to this point. But there's something driving, and I heard you talk about something similar. Can you speak to that?
Oh yes. It's a real fire in my belly to just start communicating and talking about this kind of stuff.
Talking about what specifically?
Well, really, the attack on our freedoms is what I put it most succinctly as.
And for anyone who might not know what freedoms are being attacked. How would you elaborate on that?
The Online Safety Bill, which is attacking freedom of speech. It's supposed to be for the protection of children and teenagers online. Yeah, that's the reason behind it, but it's some of the wording of it is pretty vague, and there's a lot of fear that it could be used in the future to shut people like us down online, that it can be morphed over into that kind of purpose. So that's something we need to look at. You've got...
and it's fair to say, isn't it, that haven't the police actually already been acting on that even before it's actually had royal assent to be fully passed?
Indeed,
they've been arresting people for... Well, there's misinformation, disinformation and malinformation, isn't there?
Yeah.
And malinformation is an interesting one because it's actually where you're speaking facts.
Indeed, yes.
But facts that the powers that shouldn't be, as you put it.
Oh yeah, you're picking up on these
it's quite useful how to play with the language, isn't it?
Yeah.
The powers that shouldn't be are deemed to be not helpful for you to know.
Yes, this is so dangerous.
And the police have been actually making arrests potentially on this before the bill's even fully gone through.
Well, even before the bill even was thought of, I think a good few years ago, people were getting in trouble with police just for telling jokes, or one guy, I don't know if you know that, Docker, is it? Someone Miller, I think he's called. I think he's the Docker guy, or he used to be a Docker, and he literally tweeted something. Well, he didn't even tweet it. He just shared the tweet, and then he got in trouble with the police. They rang him up and said, why were you sort of sending this on? It's offensive. There's been complaints, and it wasn't really that offensive. It was something about well, I won't go into the details, but
so hate speech comes into this, does it?
Yeah, but it wasn't.
No.
It wasn't even hate speech, really. It was very mild, from what I could see, and he wasn't even the originator of it. He was just passing it on, and yet that sort of thing gets you in trouble with the police these days.
So to elaborate on the attack on our freedoms, so the freedom of speech is what I'm hearing, and the right to protest, I think, comes into
there's a bill that came in. I can't remember what that one was called, but it came in a while ago, where you can't really protest or have noisy, disturbing protests. Apparently, that's to stop more the sort of just stop oil type of protests.
That's the justification, isn't it?
That's the justification, but that could easily be turned if you're protesting about anything anti-government or anti-narrative.
Wasn't it made that even if it was one person protesting, if it was disturbing the shopkeeper outside, for instance, or interrupting their business, deemed to be that came into it, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah, and I think that there are some very well-meaning, well-intentioned people who care deeply about the planet, which is sort of a bit of a hot potato right now, isn't it?
Yes. Greta was arrested yesterday, or recently, wasn't she?
Oh, you're going to have to tell me about that.
Apparently, yeah.
But the actions like gluing yourself to the motorway or whatever and stopping traffic, well, the intentions behind that might be really, really good. It's become a justification for these quite draconian bills to be passed through that a lot of people don't even know are being passed through. How would you respond to that?
Well, it's the Hegelian dialectic, isn't it? Sort of problem, reaction, solution. A lot of people think these just stop oil people are kind of basically government stooges who are going out, doing their protests, which winds up the public so much that you then get that's the problem. Then you get the reaction from the public. Government, do something about these protesters, because I can't get into London to do my job in my van and without sort of having to be stopped for many hours by these people. So bring in a law to get rid of this problem, and then the government comes in.
What do you mean by government stooges?
As well, people, so it's said, because the government, they don't act transparently. I'm more than convinced about this now. They do these weird and wonderful things, and they're certainly not above kind of employing people who, I don't know, are really, I don't know what they are, MI5 or whoever, or sort of undercover police, but they pretend they're protesters, and then they kind of then create these problems. And
would it be fair to say that it may not even be that obvious or direct, that they're whether it's funds or just what's politically acceptable to support? Who could not support the looking after the planet?
Yes.
Right? So it could be just some people who care deeply and who are driven and have found their tribe.
Yeah.
People who also care deeply. I think there's a lot of young people swooped in on that.
Yes.
But that doesn't get the censorship. That gets the headline news.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which, even though it might be negative attention, is still attention.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's potentially some very well-intentioned, just ordinary people who are still, without even realising it, supporting a drive towards a draconian totalitarian solution to a problem.
Indeed.
Who may just be thinking they're doing their bit for the planet. Is that fair?
Oh yeah.
It doesn't have to be conspiratorial. There may be some truth in that.
Yeah, it might be. It might just be a handful of ringleaders out of the thousands of Just Stop Oil people. It might just be a few of the ringleaders who are sort of somehow getting pushed by the powers that shouldn't be, and the rest of them are well-intentioned people. Yeah.
So we've got the freedoms under attack. So we've got the freedom of speech and the freedom of protest. And what other freedoms are you concerned about?
Bodily autonomy. We've got this WHO pandemic treaty, which is being very heavily pushed. And
we're coming quite close to a really important deadline on that, aren't we?
We are, yeah.
1st of December.
Yes.
Just right round the corner.
That's it, and that's going to, if people don't know, that's going to give the WHO, whereas with all the stuff we've had over the last 3 years, they've just been issuing these directives, or the guidelines, should I say, and then it's been up to governments to follow it or not follow them as they see fit. If they get this treaty through, it's going to give the WHO really power over any government that's signed up for this, and then what they come out with in another emergency in the future is they can issue directives.
From on high.
Yeah, dictate from on high, and then the governments have to follow their guidelines or their dictate, the diktats without question. So,
and for those who might think that the WHO are, that there's an argument, isn't there, that our politicians have made a complete mess of handling the pandemic, and the responses have had unintended consequences, and that they're not capable of actually making decisions. So the WHO, they know what they're doing. They're a World Health Organization, and so maybe we'd be better off having being told what to do by.
That's the argument, isn't it?
So what's the problem with that you see?
Well, it's the WHO really. First of all, the head guy, Tedros, he's got a rather dodgy past, isn't he? And then the funding. The funding of the WHO is from people with very heavy vested interests into basically things that go in there. How is that kind of independent? That seems to me corrupt. And if they're being basically paid by these interests and these companies to push certain treatments, how can that organisation possibly come out with a fair and equitable solution that is going to be sort of fine for everybody? It's impossible, I would have thought.
And many people may be supportive of this type of response, but for what does it overlook?
Well, it overlooks individual freedom of choice to, as to what you might want to have put into your body or not put into your body. I think that is a fundamental human right to be able to sort of choose for yourself. Thanks for the guidance and the advice, but am I okay as I am? Thanks, but no thanks.
What about those who would think that we're the mantra that's been put out there, isn't it? We're only safe when everyone's safe, and this kind of that we all have to do our bit, and that it's selfish to choose not to toe the line with a bodily intervention if that's what it takes to actually save everybody.
Yeah, and I never really bought into that particular government and big pharma propaganda. The whole thing, mine won't work if unless you take yours as well. Well, either the thing works, and if you have yours, you shouldn't have to worry about what I'm doing, or the thing doesn't work, in which case, why are you asking me to take it if it doesn't work? You know what I mean? It's just, that is just total propaganda. It made no sense to me whatsoever.
Any other freedoms that you're concerned about losing?
Freedom of move. Well, we did lose them. Freedom to travel. That is a fundamental.
Which was a big driver for people taking the intervention they were told to take, wasn't it?
Indeed, it was. But
didn't quite work out very well for that.
No. But it's freedom of travel is one of the inalienable human rights, isn't it?
Right to move.
Right to move. You should be sort of free to travel anywhere and everywhere without passports, even really. But that freedom was taken away from us for a couple of years, good 2 or 3 years, wasn't it? And from early 2020 to it was only a few months ago that restrictions for me and you were lifted for going to places like the USA or Indonesia. And I'd quite like to go back to Bali, but they said you couldn't go unless you had the certain thing, and that was only lifted in about June or July. So,
gosh, yes, it was some earlier this year, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the earliest countries where you could go to Mexico all the way through and places like that, but there was a time when you could literally only go to about 3 or 4 countries. And then you had a lot of trouble if you're coming back. You had to go into those detention centres.
And that even counted for children too, didn't it?
Yeah, it accounted for everybody. Yeah. But that was another thing, wasn't it? The children,
which was something kind of so preposterous and outrageous to suggest even a year and a half ago that. You really were kind of deemed to be the conspiracy theorist if you mentioned that word. But I think if one were to look at the excess death rates now, it's troubling, isn't it?
Oh yes, yeah, indeed. In fact, Andrew Bridgen's going to be talking about
on Friday,
isn't he, in Parliament?
And will he be speaking to an empty house again, Tim? What are your bets?
Well, a lot of people have been writing to their MPs saying, you better be there.
Right.
I'm keeping my eye on you.
And so for those who are watching, then just in case you can get this uploaded in time. So we're recording this on Wednesday the 18th.
Yeah.
So Friday 20th is when he will be addressing the House of Commons specifically on excess deaths, isn't it?
It is.
In 2021, or was 22?
I'm not sure the timings like that
The last couple of years, at least.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So since the start of 2021.
So that's what he's addressing on Friday. So what can people do if they?
Well, I believe there's going to be a bit of a gathering in Parliament Square. He's going to be doing his speech in Parliament, and then after that, he's going to be coming out and talking to the crowds. So
live or recorded.
Yes.
Online, can't they?
Yes, that's right. I'm sure the footage will go viral, at least, even if there's not many MPs in there, which will look bad. If the video goes viral and there's
an empty house again,
an empty house that's just
or
going to
people being actively pulled out like they have.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, indeed.
Okay, so we got into some quite specifics, but I mean, before we move on from freedoms, are there any other freedoms that you believe are under attack that would be important that you feel are important?
Well, I think all of them. I think if the powers that shouldn't be get their way, in the end, they're all going to be under attack.
So this drive that drives you to turn up to events and film and to speak to camera and voice your opinions. What is that drive? Where does it come from? Is it fear of what might happen in the future if you don't get the word out, or is it a compulsion to? Well, tell me.
Yeah, it is fear for the future, really, and I feel it's my duty to do this. I feel driven. Whether it's a calling from God or whoever you want to, however you want to put it, but I just feel this deep down drive to do this. It's, I think it's what I was born for. To be honest with you, I never really knew my purpose in life until a few years ago, and this is sort of. I thought, well, I'm going to go to my grave. This is pre-2020. I'm going to live out, hopefully, 2 or 3 more decades, and then go to meet my maker, and really never having found my purpose in life. And I feel I have found my purpose in life. This is what I'm here to do, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to carry on doing it.
And what specifically are you here to do?
Just get the word out, really,
about this attack on our freedoms.
Our attack on all of the freedoms, yeah, and what other people are doing. I want to get the word out. About so many things, like everything from alternative health, alternative ways that society can be run. Alternative ways for food and food production that doesn't involve
moving, not just focusing on the problem, moving more towards solutions.
Towards the solutions as well. Yeah. And personally, I think we just need to decentralise a lot more, and a completely decentralised society and country where everything's sort of local. Most of the decisions
not the 15-minute city type of local.
no, not that local. No, you can, if you want to leave sort of one locality because you don't like the way that one's run, you can go to one 50 miles away, 100 miles away, and sort of set down there. So complete freedom to move, but with everything being localised and decentralised as well. So that would be my take on that. My ideal society.
I wanted to ask, and we haven't done a lot of your background. I've got 3 questions.
Oh yes.
So I'm aware of time. So one is, can you talk us through the average day of Tim? What is your average day? Like if you were doing this thing.
Yeah, well, my very typical work day would be, get up, go out and do my electrical work, etc. And then if I've got a few minutes between jobs, I'll get the phone on the visor thing and start venting my spleen, saying what's on my mind, which is often sort of sparked by something I've seen or a conversation I've had with a customer, or sort of something I've seen on Telegram, maybe over breakfast, etc. So I shoot that, get it on my phone, finish off my work, and then when I get home, I just give the video a quick edit and get it up onto YouTube, and then relax. Obviously, not watching mainstream media. Turned off the TV.
You got rid of the television, didn't you?
Yeah, well, we've still got a TV, but we only watch well, nothing live on it, nothing mainstream media. And I just look at my iPad all the time. My wife sort of sometimes sort of puts a DVD on the TV or whatever. But I just like to look at my iPad, freedom stuff, the latest news and the freedom.
What about when you're filming events? Is that about a large part of your?
Well, it's getting more and more. Yeah. And it goes in fits and starts.
You've done a lot this week, I think.
Yeah, I've done loads. Then you get quiet weeks. Once I've completed this, and done a bit more editing. It goes pretty quiet for a while. But when I'm busy, it's. So
describe a busy day when you're doing your filming.
Well, I had a very busy day just before seeing you speak at the last Uprise and Shine. I had a job I had to do, so I left home. I had all my stuff in the van, all my tools for work and all my cameras and my tent for camping and everything. Stuffed it all in there, and then I went and did this job, which was changing over half a dozen lights, I think it was. And then once that was done, I sort of rushed down to where the Uprise and Shine was happening. This was the one in September Sussex. In East Sussex, yeah. And set up my camera and videoed that for 3 days. And then went camping
over that.
Yeah. Sort of had my little tent there in the field, which was great. Saw it was a beautiful full moon that rose up out of the trees when I was camping, and I'd gone back to the tent, and I was just sitting there in my little camping chair and with a nice little glass of red wine, and I thought, what's that light shining through those trees there? Because there was the woods across the field, and then I realised it was the moon, and then it came up, and it was beautiful. you should have seen it.
Spectacular full moon at the Bath Better Way conference as well.
Yes.
That was something else.
Yeah. Oh yes, I saw you there.
Divinely timed, maybe.
Yeah.
And of all the freedom events that you've been to, protests and conference type things, and all the speakers and the workshops that are happening, that you must have come across so much information. And
oh yeah.
Are there any standout things, either that were like complete revelation that have really stuck in your mind, or potential solutions to the problem, or what different change in perspective of seeing things, and all that information that you've come across? What would be the golden nuggets?
Where do I start with that one?
And
I've probably learned. I said this to someone else the other day. I've probably learnt more in the last 3 years than I did in the last previous 30.
And that's from going to these events.
Going to events and looking at so much stuff online,
right.
etc. But I suppose the kind of key standout things are you can't trust your government. Certainly can't trust mainstream media. Before 2020, I always thought you kind of knew that obviously politicians and reporters and the BBC kind of fib sometimes, but when it came to the important stuff, they were basically on your side and wouldn't lie too badly. But that has illusions been totally shattered. You can't trust any of them, which is a negative thing. I know, but more on the positive side, it's basically you have to go out there and find the information. Sort of, look beyond the end of your nose, really, and something that doesn't sort of feel right or smell right. Instead of going, I'll just go along with it. No, you've got to get out there and start looking a bit further afield.
Can you describe that feeling where, there's a whole plethora of information to come across. But what is that feeling inside when something doesn't feel right, and you don't trust that bit of information or that source, or you've got a strong sense that that's not the solution. What is that feeling internally, which some might say trust your gut, or like an intuition or a knowing that has guided you as to what to believe and what not to believe?
I can't really put a finger on it. It's just a knowing deep down in your soul, gut feeling, whatever you want to call it. But you just think, yeah, something's not adding up here, and then you might rationalise it, perhaps. Someone's telling you one thing, and then you sort of think, well, hang on a minute, not long ago you were saying the total opposite. Whereas that seems to sort of go over people's heads totally, and it's that's okay, that doesn't matter. I just think that does matter. And a classic case in point was people were saying right at the start of the nonsense, masks don't do anything. You literally had people like Fauci and Hancock and Whitty, etc., saying, they're not really helpful in this situation. And then the next month, they're saying, they're definitely.
And then one's not enough; you have to have three.
Yeah, and the welding mask thing over your face as well. Yeah.
So, we need to wrap up soon. But I would love to know: have you always been somebody that, when you were a boy, were you somebody that questioned authority? Were you when you were younger, did you have that knowing that you talk about then, or is that something that, where
Yeah,
tell
I was
me
a bit of a
about
loner.
that.
Yeah.
Tell me about the younger Tim that became this.
Yeah, I was always a bit of a
rebel.
I think I've always had a rebellious spirit, I guess. When I was very young, I often questioned things either at home or at school, and when people just said things like, no Tim, just do it, just do what I say, it doesn't matter what you think, just do what I say. And I sort of think, well, that's not really fair, surely. And then when I became a teenager, and a young man, I didn't like school. I went to a particularly authoritarian school that was actually in the Sun in 1982, and our school was called, the headline, typical of the Sun newspaper, Wacko Academy. And it was because my school had the most canings in the country. This is back in the day of caning and corporal punishment at schools.
Did you have that?
I almost had it, but I managed to slip out of it.
It existed. Caning
yeah.
existed when you were at school.
Oh yeah, I knew many sort of other people at my school who got the cane, and friends who got it, and I nearly got it myself, but I managed to kind of talk my way out of it. And but yeah, and I didn't like that school at all. And it was a very big rugby playing school, and I'm not really sporty at all. But of course, they took one look at me, great big bloke, and they said, "Right, you're playing rugby," and I was like, "No, I'm not."
So you weren't afraid to be a bit belligerent and stand out a bit and question authority?
No. And there was one teacher who's really trying to get me to play rugby, and he is my form teacher, and every sort of registration time he is going to me, "Tim, you've got to get on the rugby team," and I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And this carried on for weeks, and until he eventually gave up. So I can be a bit of a stubborn one.
So stubbornness can be a positive quality.
That's probably,
able to stand your ground.
Yeah, and that's
pretty positive quality in the light of recent events.
It is, yeah. And I made a video a long time ago, which brought out my stubbornness, and it was when they were really trying to push and you had all of these horrible people saying, well, if you don't have anything to do with you, and I think you should be excluded from society, and I think you you know, you should sort of be fined, have these fines that they were talking about, and not allowed to travel. And I was again like, you know, just bring it on. Every time you come out with something like this, you're just tightening that ratchet of stubbornness up on me more and more, and making me more and more determined that I will never, ever have this thing. So yeah, bring on all of this kind of thing.
So that was quite a strength for you. And if you were to go back to, say, the 6 or 8-year-old Tim.
Yeah.
Do you think he would have ever seen that you've become the man that you've become?
Possibly. I don't know really. I probably thought, you know, this isn't likely to leave me. I'll probably still be stubborn when I'm an adult and that kind of thing. But
winding forwards to when you're maybe 80 years old, and looking back, what would that 80-year-old? What advice would they have for you now?
I think just be you. Don't be afraid of doing what you want to do. And if you don't want to do something, just carry on standing up for yourself, and don't be fearful. I'm not sort of fearful anyway. Actually, your last talk at Uprise and Shine, you said put your hands up if you don't have any fear at all, or words to that effect. And my hand just shot up. And there's only one other person who did that as well, and that was the other video guy, actually, Simon. And but when my hand shot up, that was subconscious, and I was like, hang on a minute, should this really be up? Surely I have got some fears. Maybe I should be pulling it down. And then I thought, no,
that was your first response.
Yeah, this is how I actually feel. I don't feel fear now. I've lost my fear over these last few years.
And that's been through actually stepping into your power and putting yourself out there?
I think so,
that's been a part of it.
Yeah.
And that it's like a daily practice, isn't it, to be bold?
It is, yes. Although people say, you said it to me in your kitchen when you get in the coffees, you're sort of brave for doing what you do by just sort of standing in front of the camera. But to me, it doesn't feel like that. And I've had lots of people say that. Oh, I couldn't do what you do. Get in the front of the camera and put it out there. And I just think, well, I'm nothing special, and I'm just doing it because I feel I have to do it. I don't feel brave at all.
So just to wrap up, what would be your final words to anyone watching this?
Well, if you're one of my regular viewers, thank you very much for your support. It means so much to me, and I'm so proud to be part of this movement and have all of these fantastic friends. And I want to carry on serving the freedom movement and humanity generally. So watch this space. There's a lot more to come yet, I think.
Thank you so much for your time, Tim.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks for inviting me into your home and interviewing me.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.